Alright guys, welcome back to another video. This one I'm gonna dive into trees and leaves. You know, two things that go together like mac and cheese. If you watched my basic tools and techniques video before this, I kind of just did a broad run over a bunch of the basics things, and after talking with a few people I realized it'd be helpful to dive into sort of each one of those things, but get into it a little more in depth and elaborate on it, because really with those basics, you know, and learn how to push those a little further or getting some new ideas on how to work with those, you can take your paintings a whole lot farther than worrying about getting into more advanced like details and techniques, which I'll still get to, but I think I'm gonna do a couple videos real quick covering a more in-depth look at each of the basics. So this one is trees and leaves. So to get started, I'm just gonna throw some paint down real quick. A little bit of this warm color. Of course, today, the wind is blowing right at me. I can't really work with my respirator because you need to be able to hear me talk. But that's okay. So, I'm just going to cover that down with some black. Usually you can go over this and give it, you know, some kind of I guess we'll mess with it a little bit. I'm going to put some trees into this. A little green down, maybe some yellow. So I don't know if you're picking it up on there, but it's really kind of splotchy, and that's because I don't have the paint warmed up, and it's kind of cooler now in Vegas. So you're not getting a finer mist out of this. It's coming out a little heavier, and that's where you get the bigger splotches. But this is just a demo, so we're not going to worry about that right now anyway. So trees. Let's see. Adjust this a little bit. Now you can do them in a variety of ways. This is one way we're just going to make it a straight up, think like a tall pine tree. See, the paint's already kind of drying, but that's all right. You can kind of work with it a bit. See, I like when you get all this kind of texture left in there. Yeah, look at that. There. Like I said, now we're just striking up this. In this way, I'm pushing it away from myself, but you can also pull it toward you. It also helps to work from the base of the tree up when you're doing trees like this. Another variation I'll show, it works better to go from the top to the bottom, but that's just because you can come in here and wet the bottom back up again with some clear so you can play with it more. And now this, I'm using the corner, just the very corner edge of this palette knife, and just working with the corner. You push down a little bit to get more of it on there. See, if you overdo it, you get like this big mess right here. That's all right, you can go over that, but see, you can kind of create the base of the tree like some roots. Just kind of blend it up in there to the rest of the tree. See, it gives a little more organic look, like tree roots coming off. But you can also do it the other way as well, coming down, and then just taper it off. That way works too. You can taper it off, you know, really fibrous looking root system right here. So there. So you get trees, you're scraping it away. Now, like I said, when you scrape it away or toward you, what you're doing is sort of using this whole flat edge here, but depending on the angle you use it is going to determine the thickness. I'll give you a little example of that over here. So if I start totally flat, of course you can't see it there. So start totally flat and start pulling up. That is the full width of the palette knife. But now as you turn it but keep going in that same direction, you can see how the thickness of the trunk changes. So that's what you're trying to do when you're making your trees, is you're going to control the thickness of it by how much of the palette knife's width you're using when creating the tree. So you can go all the way up for a full about an inch or so, a full 1 inch on that trunk, or like I said, you turn it because you keep moving that same direction, you're minimizing how much of the width is being used to create the thickness of the trunk. So I hope that makes sense, but that's how you work with the palette knife. So coming back over here to this tree, I'm going to elaborate a little further on this. Now we're going to add a couple branches into this, because branches are going to make it just look more like a tree and more interesting, especially when it comes time to add the leaves to it. Now again with this, It's all about using this corner here and getting that flex in it. You see I got a little bit of flex. So what you want to do is, same principle, is start thick. So you're going to push down a bit, get your thickness established, and then as you guide it away, you're going to lift up and just get that corner so it tapers off like an actual tree branch. And then you're obviously going to add a few more in there. You think about tree branches, there's a I want to say a symmetry, but it's sort of a mathematical equation to how the if you want to go for something natural looking, to how the branches form. It's always like alternating, so you get a split. You should have one split off this way, and it's always constantly forking off. So if you understand that about trees and just in nature, you can get a really good, like, realistic, natural looking like trees and wildlife stuff into your paintings. So you're gonna add just another branch in over here. Like I said, you always want it to be forking off. There, and you just learn to control it just using the very tip of it, and that'll get you your, like I said, just taper it off, get your branches and down to the twigs, and then now you can come back and add, leaves. And something else I'll show you in this is adding like a little bit of like hanging moss that'll really help dress it up if you want to go with something a little more like darker, spooky, or maybe like a swamp-like look. Another example I'm going to put in right over here. This is like something used a little more creatively for like bonsai looking trees. Sorry, I keep bumping my table. In this regard, I start from the top and I start it thin, and then I thicken it out as I bring it down. But this is a little more like a very flowing sort of way of doing it. So I come in here and just kind of, again, you slowly add pressure to thicken it up. Now, of course, I waited too long and that dried up on me, but that's okay. You just come back in, pick up on it again. As you build the control, so you kind of try to taper it off. It's a little bit too dry down here, but that's fine. I see you get stuff like this. You can either thicken this trunk back out, or you just come back in and add another branch in like that. You come in from this side. Just be mindful of the thickness as you kind of go from the taper and you thicken it out to try to make sure it kind of blends in with the trunk. Ideally, you wouldn't want like this branch here to come in and be like super thick. So you just come in down here and then again add in some roots. And then now it's like the same principle with this one. You come in here, you can leave these a little more flowing to go with kind of the flow of the trunk. Now it's like a jagged sort of natural look like on this one over here. Everything kind of tapering off. But again, I mean, you could do that if you want to, have it all like kind of jagged and natural looking. But yeah, it's just kind of more the style if you want something cool like a bonsai tree or something that looks like it's been I can't think of the word, trained to grow in a certain way. And now another option, let's see, adjust this table. I'll just make a small version over here. This is one where you can kind of come in, you still start from the top. This is if you kind of want to get like a thicker, sort of like funky sort of tree. You just have like a lot of branches on it. You can think like a really old like oak tree kind of vibe. Just gonna kind of keep digging in here and add in a bunch of branches on it. It's kind of off the color, but it's fine. And you come back in and like really thicken it up with a lot of branches and stuff. And again, this is you can stretch this out, make it look better. Look at photos of nature and just try to emulate what you see there once you learn how to really use your tool. And that'll get you so far. Like this straight up and down, this works great for like something like redwood trees or like a pine tree even. And again, you got these curvy flows here, great for like bonsai trees or something. You want to have like a, if you just want it to have like a more sensual, you know, flow or style to the tree. And then you come in here and make these really kind of rough, thick, stocky, or, you know, kind of, you know, trees that'll go well with, you know, like I said, it's all about the scene you're trying to create. You know, what is your goal within your painting? What are you trying to make? So now with our trees in there, I'm going to show you a couple examples when it comes to leaves. So if you watch my basics video, I got my pre-made leaf brushes here. If you haven't seen it yet, the tools and techniques, the basics one, I suggest you go back and watch that, and it covers how to make these, you know, have them on hand so you don't have to like prep them each time you're painting. You can just do a whole bunch of them and have them saved. But this is what we're going to use to add the leaves on here. But what I'm going to cover, which I talked about a little bit in that other video, was how you're going to use your paint to create your leaves. Now, again, like I covered in that video, sorry about that, keep rocking it, move this up a little. To get it more like, as you see all this texture and stuff gets left in here, it gives it more of a three-dimensional look than if you just scraped it out solid. Also, the color you put down first is what's going to come through as the trunk for that tree. So with that in mind, though, you have all this texture, and it gives it more, you know, three-dimension. You do not want your leaves and stuff to go down and for those to look flat. So how do you avoid that? Well, you do not use a single color. So when you use a single color and you're layering it all up on itself, it just looks flat. And I'll show you another bad example when it comes to that. You can use the single color. Get some green on here. This is an option some people go with where they just add green. It's a whole bunch of just emerald safety green, Krylon. I'm going to do it on the thick tree over here. Now, down that around, as you kind of go over that, you get your branches kind of sticking through a bit. But as you can see, it's very flat and one-dimensional looking. Let me get a closer look. So yeah. And so you get this really great sort of silhouette in here, and where the paint's not as thick, you get some degree of like dimension to it. But you see it still looks very flat. Something you also want to keep in mind is not to do like your leaf color the same as like your background color, because then it just kind of blends in. It's one thing to do that if it's something further in the background. As you build forward, you know, you obviously want contrasting color. So another option people do, and what I was originally taught, is that you do that one color first, and then you come in with something like white, and then you want to just dab, 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 and give it little highlights like that. Now, that does work, but it is arguably not the best route to go with. And I'll show you a different example using the same colors, so to speak, this color green, but I'm going to do it as like bushes across the bottom here. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll with the white. Come on. Get a little. I like to be able to do a streak of white. A layer of green. In this case, a dark regal blue. Now, that layered up, we're going to build this up. You want to essentially split these colors onto the brush the same way. So you want the blue down here to the back, the green to the middle, the white to the top. So as you're dabbing, it's better to dab and then roll it forward as you're moving up. So just load it there. And then now come in down here along the bottom. Yeah. And you can see the world of difference that is. And I'll pull this up, bring it closer. So yeah. Now the white tints it and gives you a highlight. The green itself acts as like the mid-tone. Excuse me. And then the regal blue comes in and acts as a shadow color, because when you're working with color, and you want to add shadows, if you want to add a shadow of a certain color, it's usually the next shade down on the color wheel. So where you have like yellow, green, blue, so technically yellow would be the better highlight to use for this, and then you'd have green, and then blue would be the shadow color. But this is just a variation using the white here that I've come to like. You can use it for like nighttime scenes, or just I don't know, any kind of scene you want, really. I mean, obviously the choice is yours and what you're trying to create in your painting. But yeah, again, so you have to have just the green. It's horribly flat, not much going on. If you just dab some white on there, it gives you some dimension, but it's not a very authentic look. But then when you do like the 3 colors, you try to think of like a highlight, a midtone, and a shadow color, and blend it all on the brush at the same time, and then put it down, you get a lot more dimension and interest in your leaves and bushes and stuff. So I'm gonna do another color combination for this sort of like redwood tree here. Maybe 2. Now I'm gonna do one color combination for the leaves. I got something else in mind I'll do for the ground. I think I already demonstrated those in the previous video, but I'm gonna go over it again. And for this bonsai tree, I'm gonna do like it's gonna be like a cherry blossom deal. So I'm gonna do that and make the leaves I'm either gonna go with like red or purple. So in this combination, I'm just gonna start the same with some white. That'll have to do. This time some yellow, and where's that blue again? Now, if you know anything about mixing colors, yellow and blue make green. Because we're using yellow, white is pretty much the go-to for a highlight for that. So again, we're gonna load the brush, paint on there, and give this baby some leaves. Yeah. See that blue and yellow mix, and you get a nice deep bluish green color. So then you cross over the trunk, and it adds dimension. Like the branches are, one's back behind the other, or they're both kind of coming forward, depending on where you put it. Now, a little trick, and you just kind of get some paint on here now, is to come in and you want to try to, practice messing around with your brush. You'll get a feel for it, but you really want to kind of just get this edge here. But you could add some streaks to make like I know from Florida, I know it is Spanish moss, but now you have like moss hanging from your tree. I mean, it works really well if you're doing like a cool like swampy scene or something with or you are going for like something spooky and vibe. Like I do a really cool black and white one, and I add that in there just to add some contrast. But you see, you could add, usually you want to do that with just white. You'd want it to be more of like the greenish or like yellow color in there, because the white just kind of stands out too much. But yeah, and then if you get a little too much, or it seems a little overzealous, you want to kind of knock it back a bit. It's all right, just go back, or if you don't like it too much, just reload your brush, come back in, and there. Now it's there, but it's knocked back, and you just added like a whole other layer of like 3-dimensionality to it. So now it's like, yeah, there's moss in there, but now this cluster of leaves, these branches here, has like more depth and dimension, because you're pushing stuff into the background. These leaves are now more in the foreground. So yeah, so you got cool color ideas. Something else you can always do is come back in, even though you put these down, because you got white mixed in there, you can always just hint over it with just a tiny hint of color. See how this gets a little more yellow looking? I mean, you can come back at it with a bit of green. I mean, whatever you want to hint at that with. I mean, you can even hit it with just something like some red, just anything you want, because you got that white in there as like a highlight. It's, like I said, it tints it, so it like kind of desaturates the color a bit, and it leaves it vulnerable to like I said, just adding highlights of color, just little highlights of color. And then when you come back in here and you clear coated at the end, that color kind of fades into the leaves a bit. So it's like it's still green, but it's got hints of orange or hints of red, or or the yellow. Like I said, you can kind of tint things or give it like an overlay of color, like that as well. So that's what we have for those leaves. I'm gonna do a different color down here. Now this is just gonna be a basic one. Again, I might have shown this in the previous video, but I'm gonna go over it again. This is one you wouldn't expect. Just so you know, this is, I'm only using Krylon right now. This is Sun Safety Yellow and Black. I got that on there. It's kind of pooling around. Just black and yellow. And what this gets you is this kind of dark olive drab looking green. So that's great if you want, it's like something really deep in shadow, a ground cover. I mean, you can really kind of layer this over each other and create just like a sort of a funky ground cover look instead of just big bushes everywhere. The same principle as using the brush to make like moss draping from the trees. You can take it and streak it upward and create, patches of grass, or just take it across the whole area and create a bunch of grass. There. So now you got those little hints of grass in there, but yeah, look, yellow and black. You get like this dark olive drab green, and yet you're still able to kind of create, at least as far as like a decent mid-tone and a shadow. It highlights it a little bit, but it still, adds enough dimension to it. And again, depending on the scene you're going for, the color and the way you use it and all that stuff helps set the mood and just create it. Like this whole thing was in shadow, you'd at least expect somewhat of a mid-tone to highlight color, and then for the rest of it to be dark and in shadow. So with that aside, the last thing I'm going to show you here is putting the leaves on something like a cherry blossom. I'll probably do both colors, the purple and the red. Again, helpful to have these pre-made. With this, now when doing these, I don't really get too much into the shadow colors for it. Just because, I don't know, it's just, I usually just pick a color and then add white to create like a highlight for it, and just kind of gives it more pop. But I'll do that on one, and then on the other one, I'll add a shadow color to it. I gotta get another white. This one I'm gonna do in red. It's got white, a layer of red, and I'm gonna load this up. Now this is best to only get a little bit of white on there. There, now it turns more of a, you get this great pink. Pull it a little closer. So yeah, the red kind of gets you a shadow. The pink it creates sort of makes that mid-tone, and the white gets you your highlights. But now because we're using red, I'm gonna go back over this, add a little more red. We're gonna use a blue. I usually just keep going to the Regal blue. Now obviously red and blue mixed is gonna be purple, and that's really what you want. That would be the shadow side for red. So now you can see, if you have a good purple color, you could use that. But you can also think about how colors mix. So like that Regal blue and the cherry red, I always recommend cherry red, by the way, because it just has so much more vibrant color. It's just a better red. If you look at that, like Krylon's also got like Banner red, which is kind of a duller, horrible red color. Oh shit, it's getting windy. It's all right. But yeah, so that's an example where you'd have the three colors creating your highlight, shadow, and midtones. This is how you can also get it using just red and white. And I'm gonna do, should probably make another, just clean some of this paint off of that. A little bit of white. Now I'll do one here in just the purple. Where's my purple? Sorry about that. I can't seem to see where I stuck my purple. All right, let's take a second while we. I think this is one. Nope, it's green. All right, well, we might have to postpone. All right, well, I got this purple. This is Gloss Rich Plum. Now, this is like one of the bigger cans of Krylon you can get. It's got these big fat tips on it. I sometimes get these if I want to use them for like extra like color options, but they're not my typical go-to for most of my work. But it's a very deep, rich purple. This might have been a great shadow color for like the leaves over there. I was trying to find my can of safety purple. I have a new one I just opened, but It's not gonna have the same impact, but see, it has this very, very deep, rich purple color. But you know, use the white and you get some highlight. This has got a little bit of that red in there still, so it's some pinks kind of coming through. But it's just showing you some different options you can do with the leaves. I mean, obviously, you know, pick a rich color, use white for a highlight, and you know, throw it on there. Practice with your trees. You know, when you add these colors in there, now it's all flowers. So you can really go with anything. You can also push it further if you want to use like fall colors and use like a yellow, orange, and red color combination, and you get like a great fall color look within your bushes and your leaves. But all right, yeah, so with that said, I'll wrap this up for the leaves. So yeah, you got straight trees, add branches, you can make them thick and fat, you know, wavy, sensuous, curvy. And then you come in, you can do colors if you want to have like your trees are covered in flowers, or it's like something on an alien world, so you don't have to adhere to, you know, green chlorophyll based trees. I mean, I think that's just in response to how the light spectrum, you know, hits our planet. But yeah, just play with different green combinations to get different, either more interesting or naturalistic looking colors in there. And then, like I said, don't forget to dress it up when you want to add like stuff like, you know, some moss hanging from the trees, or, you know, bits of grass popping up. And then, like in the previous video, you can come back in amongst all this stuff and, you know, etch in, you know, rocks and things. You know, and then still add stuff in like that, or, you know, just leafless little saplings that never got a chance. Oh, and another fun thing, may have demonstrated before, mechanical pencils or pens. Might be able to get away with the, let's do it with the, I'm gonna go with the pen. Use regular ballpoint pens. And you can come in here on your trees and wet it back up. And then add stuff in there. So, yeah, you make it look like someone's initials carved into the tree, things like that. I mean, you can use this pen just to come in and, you know, etch into the painting itself. So again, where all your tools and stuff, don't hesitate to mess around with them and combine them different ways. So there you have it. That's what you get for trees. This is how I do my trees. Again, with just these basics, you can use these to create anything you want as far as trees. And like I said, all you need to know is this, you know, tapered strokes. Even when you're making these trees and pulling them away, you still want it to taper off to the top, because as trees get towards the top, they get, you know, thinner. So always think about tapering the thickness of the tree as it gets closer to the top, and then same with your branches. You always want them to taper down to something smaller. And with that, I mean, you got everything you need right there to make, you know, great natural landscapes, or, you know, if you want to use colors and experiment, make, you know, alien, otherworldly landscapes. You know, the choice is yours. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for checking this out. I appreciate all the feedback and stuff I've gotten on my previous video. Again, I'm going to do more based around just these basics and elaborate on them a little bit further. If you liked, if you got something from this, I'd really appreciate, you know, a like, or just, you know, or subscribe, you know, turn on notifications. I plan to do these every week. And just that way, I mean, if this is something you want to learn, you're not going to miss anything. You know, you'll get a notification when I post something. I'm aiming for, you know, Saturday video releases in this area. And yeah, so yeah, you know, like I said, you know, like and subscribe. You know, it all helps grow the channel, and you know, keeps, you know, helps keep me motivated. But I want to keep doing this because I want to see this, you know, go somewhere, and I want to give something back and help people out. I mean, I've had 8 years of experience doing spray paint art, and I've learned a lot along the ways. And I see a lot of people, you know, that struggle to take it to that next step because they're just, you know, they're home alone, they're trying to practice, or they're watching other popular people do it on YouTube as well, just making crazy paintings, but because they don't have the same level of experience or understand these basic techniques, you know, they're struggling to get further with it. So yeah, that's my goal, is to give something back. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.